Today, let's look at some behind the scenes stuff. And I did not know what comic book drawings looked like before they were inked. And at some point, there was a Flash annual that came out in the 60s, and it had this 2-page spread by Carmine Infantino of how to draw the Flash. And look at how he shows you how to draw the Flash's face. Starts with an oval, divides it, puts guidelines in, and then you start adding details, and it becomes the Flash. Here's how to draw the Flash standing, and he shows you how to do it with his both legs same, both arms just down, and then how to put the arms on his waist and lift one leg up, which looks more dramatic. So he shows you step by step by step how to do this, how to draw the Flash running. You start with one pose, another pose, another pose. Put speed lines in. You put after image lines in. There's images of his face in between. And then this is more finished, but it's still rough pencils. And so this is, I think, probably the first time I'd ever seen what comic book drawings look like before they get inked. Then he did one for Batman, another page of how to draw Batman by Carmine Infantino. Here he is just standing, arms down, arms on his waist, and then a side shot. Different views of the face, back of the head, and Robin. So this was really a great thing. Then there was this Captain Marvel Treasury edition that came out. And here's C.C. Beck showing you how to draw Captain Marvel and Mary Marvel. You start with a rough drawing, the outlines, and then add in some details with your pencil. Then you can darken it in with pencil or pen. Here he is inking it with a pen, adding black for the hair, and the printer adds the color later on. This page is by Mac Raboy, How to Draw Captain Marvel Jr. He was one of the great artists of the 40s also. He starts with this rough outline, and then here's one where he's facing camera. How to draw the face, side view, full on. He starts with a square, divides it up, and puts an oval inside for the face, divides that, everything. How to draw the hand, with the cuffs details, the cape, how the cape attaches. So this is wonderful stuff. Then here's one, I guess C.C. Beck did this, but I'm not sure. That looks like Kurt Schaffenberger. Yeah, I guess Kurt did these 2 pages because there he is at his drawing desk. And he's showing you how to start with basic shapes and adding details to turn into the evil Dr. Sivana, Mr. Tawny, the talking tiger, and Mr. Mind, the talking worm. Wonderful stuff. Here's a double page, How to Draw Tarzan by Joe Kubert, the great Joe Kubert. He actually opened up a school for how to draw comics and animation. A few of my friends went there. Sketch it lightly here. Start adding details. Darken it in with your pen. Add black. And then the printer adds the color. Here's the tools used. Here's how to draw Tarzan standing up. Just a lightly drawn figure standing, and then you darken it in. But look at that. We didn't see this type of thing in the early 60s. It wasn't until the late 60s, early 70s. How to draw Tarzan's face, how to draw some of the foliage. Wonderful stuff. Until then, we were just in the dark, had no idea. So this is the Neal Adams Index, came out back in '74. And here they put in how Neil Adams did a rough for an Archie gag, and then how it looked when it was cleaned up, ready for print. And this, again, wonderful stuff to see how somebody just roughs out the idea to turn it into a finish. So the next stuff I saw was in here. This is Squatrunt magazine, which is a fanzine all about EC Comics. And this issue is dedicated to Harvey Kurtzman. And I'd never seen his comic strips like that. But he edited the war books for EC. And here we saw how he roughed out a page on 8.5 by 11 paper, breaking it down into panels, real small, tiny things on 8.5 by 11. Here's some more pages. Just really rough drawings. And these were then given to an artist to turn them into finished pages. But this is how he wrote his stories. He wrote in pictures like this. Here's a Two-Fisted Tales cover. That's the finish, but here's his rough. And look how similar it is to the finish. And it's the Marines walking towards camera. He's holding his buddy. And then when it gets finished, this is what it looks like. I should have the color of that somewhere. Here he is drawing a Frankenstein story. And it's all roughed out on graph paper. He worked on graph paper a lot at some point because somebody gave him a ton of it, I guess. Like accounting paper or something. Or maybe that was Goodman Beaver. But anyway, he would write and draw right on the 8.5 by 11 paper. Get everything worked out. Dialogue, compositions, everything. And then you give it to an artist to finish. Here he is drawing Little Annie Fanny, roughing out the whole thing, and that would then be given to Will Elder, who would add the color and everything. So also in this issue were other artists that we saw roughing out stuff. This is the great Reed Crandall, one of my favorites. And Frank Frazetta, another one of my favorites. And this issue has some other rough drawings in it that I wanted you to see. Like, the great Al Williamson did that. Pencil drawing, looks like another Williamson. Frazetta, one of the greats. A Frazetta pencil drawing. That might have been the first time I saw a Frazetta pencil drawing. But it was fascinating to see what this looks like before the inker and the colorist get to it. So here's Frank Frazetta drawing the Buck Rogers comic strip. And there was something about... no, it's not Buck Rogers. It's Flash Gordon. He's drawing the Flash Gordon comic strip. This is what the pencils of a Flash Gordon comic strip by Frank Frazetta looks like. That's written by Harvey Kurtzman. And it was so nice to see this is what finished pencils look like. Because like I said, we didn't see behind the scenes stuff back in those days. Great George Evans. Here's George Evans drawing roughs for his comic strip. Everybody works slightly different, but everybody has to start out roughing in everything to figure out the dialogue and the composition and where's the characters going to be. And then I got this, which has Flash Gordon comics that are written by Harvey Kurtzman, and they printed the pencils of the Flash Gordon by Frazetta that we just saw. And then they have these roughs. This is Kurtzman's roughs for Flash Gordon. And look how rough they are. But you give those to an artist and he knows just what to do to finish them off. And I like this way of writing comics and comic strips, just using pictures and figuring out your plot and dialogue and everything. And I used to wonder, how did he do that? And then I got this. And this is Harvey Kurtzman's biography, My Life as a Cartoonist. And at the end, he shows you how to do your comic. This is a one-page comic. And he said what you do is you start with, you write down your idea on a notepad or a piece of paper, and then you break it down into panels. You can take an 8.5 by 11 paper. You can take a piece of tablet paper like this, divide it up into panels, and do your thinking here, this rough. Then when you're satisfied with that, you can figure out where the dialogue balloons are going to go. And here he's putting in the drawings of the characters in the background. And you start darkening in the drawings of the characters in the background and the lettering. So this is a step-by-step on how to do that. And this is the finished piece. Now all the lettering is done, the inking is done, and you send it off to the printer to get finished piece. So I've been fascinated by all this rough work. Here's a Harvey Kurtzman retrospective done at the Cartoon Art Museum in Frisco, San Francisco. And I went there a few years ago and bought this book that was a compilation of the show. And they have these pages where you see Harvey Kurtzman's rough drawings. And it looks like he draws in orange first, or red. Then we'll go over it in blue, and then finally black ink. And that's what he gives to Bill Elder to do the finish. But look at how he does the roughing out, putting in the word balloons, figuring out the compositions. And that's his way of working. So that was the idea of today's video, was showing you how we didn't see how the guys got to those points of finishing the art. We didn't know what that looked like until we saw stuff like this. And then once we saw this, we figured, oh, you draw really rough and figure it out first, and then you do the ink on top. We had no idea. But remember, no matter how your artwork looks, always start with your idea and flesh it out into a story or joke or gag. And no matter how much you like the finished art, if the basic idea and the gag are not strong enough, nobody's really going to care. Just write out your storyline, your plot, your gag. Make sure it makes you laugh or entertains you, and then start drawing. So until next time, keep creating.